The days are getting longer and the air feels different. Spring is just around the corner, and that means it's time to get our Ranunculus corms in the ground. These cool weather flowers thrive in temperatures between the 60s and 70s, making the early spring the perfect time to plant. They might not look much when you start, but if we get them started correctly, they will explode into some of the most stunning blooms of the entire season. We're going to walk you through the steps on planting ranunculus so you can have beautiful flowers this spring. So these are my ranunculus combs from last year. They're all dry. There's several of them, small and big. So we are going to rehydrate them today and hopefully get them planted in some pots so we can start growing them for this spring and early summer when it's still cold out. So the first thing that I do is I get water ready. You want cool water, it doesn't have to be cold. And then some people say you need to keep the water running so that it's continually getting some fresh water. And so I just leave a drip and then I just pop my combs in there. Then I just give them a little mix around here. So right now they're super dry. You saw that earlier. They're real dry and crispy. When we come back, they'll have plumped up a little and they'll be a little more malleable. And then I'll just let those sit for 3 to 4 hours and then we'll come back and plant them. The ranunculus combs have been soaking in this water for about 4 hours and they are ready to go. When we first put them in the water, they were small and dry, but now they are plump and full of life and just what we want them to look like before we plant them. Next, we get our pots of soil ready. A well-draining mix is really key so that the corms do not rot. We're going to gently tuck the ranunculus corms in with the claw side down, about 1 inch deep in each of these pots. This is the same if you were to plant them outside. And then we'll cover them with soil. Now they really just need the right conditions. We want them to stay cool but not freezing. Somewhere in the 60s to 70s is best. And then make sure they're consistently moist. We do not want a wet, soppy soil, but we also do not want it to be too dry. So I always start my soil moist and then I use a spray bottle to keep everything on top, all that soil on top, nice and moist as well. In about 10 to 14 days, we should start seeing little sprouts pushing through. And that's when we know that they are getting ready to grow into those nice, healthy plants. It won't be long before we are rewarded with some of the most beautiful blooms of the season. And trust me, it's totally worth the wait. Usually I will cover them just to get them started and then allow the sun to do its job. This year, we are switching things up and rotating our 2 upper house gardens. Our cut flower garden is moving to the opposite side of the yard, and over here you can kind of see I have a small raised bed. And I'm actually going to be planting some of those soaked ranunculus corms directly into the soil this year. But since March weather can be really unpredictable, we need to protect them from any surprise freezes. And to do that, I'm setting up a small wind tunnel using some plastic and trellis rods that we've used in past seasons. This will help to create a little microclimate, keeping those corms nice and warm while still allowing the air to flow and for that moisture to circulate. And the first thing that I need to do is figure out my trellis rods. I will be arching them over that raised bed to create a simple frame, and then I can secure the plastic over the top of that. Now, these little trellis frames I got off of Amazon, and I will link them down in the description. They're pretty lightweight, so they're only good for projects that are really low to the ground. But they have worked really well the last two gardening seasons. I've used them in my flower garden as well as up in my regular vegetable garden for protecting cabbage and lettuce from bugs, as well as creating these small little wind tunnels or little greenhouses for my flower starts. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get those frames into this raised bed. And I originally thought I would use three of them, but decided that it's small enough, I'm only going to use two. Now, the plastic that I'm using is rather large. I just have one really huge sheet of plastic. And instead of cutting it, I just decided that I would use the one side of the sheet and roll up the opposite side. This will allow me to use the area next to these ranunculuses to plant some other cold weather vegetables like some cabbage or some lettuce or whatever, as well as maybe some more flowers that I'm hoping to get into the ground once they bloom indoors. So I'm getting that plastic over the top, making sure that I weigh it down with some stakes, or in this case, we have a lot of lava rock. And so I use lava rock. As you can see, this entire bed is framed in lava rock. But this will keep it from blowing away in the wind. And our March and April weather, like I said, is really unpredictable and we can get a lot of wind. So making sure that they are staked down or weighed down is really important. This setup will help trap that warmth during the chilly nights while still being really easy for me to open up on warmer days. Now that that's set up, it's time to plant. I'm going to space the corms about 12 inches apart and tuck them 1 inch deep into the soil with the claw side down. This spacing is going to give them room to grow without overcrowding them, which means that the plants will be healthier and hopefully will have some bigger blooms. This will also make it easier for me to use stakes to keep them up, as they can get really heavy and topple over. Now the key here is moisture. Each day I'm going to come and check and make sure the soil is nice and moist, spray some water on it. We want those corms to stay hydrated so that they can wake up and start growing. But we also don't want the soil to be too wet or they could rot. And over the next couple of months, with a little patience and a lot of care, we should see some strong, healthy plants emerging. And before we know it, we'll be harvesting armfuls of beautiful ranunculus flowers, which is one of my favorite parts about spring. I hope that you will consider planting ranunculus flowers in your garden this year. There is still time. They are beautiful. You will not regret it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite flowers are. I hope spring is good to you, and we'll see you in the next video.